Welcome to From Beyond with your host, Glenn Boddice. Join me as we explore spirituality, self-help, and channeling spirit. Hello and welcome to From Beyond with your host Glenn Boddice, spiritual medium. Thank you for tuning in for another very interesting deep dive episode. As in this week's show, we're going to be looking at the topic spiritual development. We also have in this week's show the channeling from the world of spirit, which sees me becoming a vessel for spirit to bring their wisdom and communications through. And then later on in this episode, we have a sneaky peek into this week's energy forecast reading. So first of all, I'd like to thank you all for your continued support and patience. As you're all aware, last week I took the time off from doing an episode simply because of doing too much and overloading the system and needing that time out to spend with the family and friends there. And it was very, very much appreciated and needed for me to do that as I went out in nature, recalibrated my vibes, and I feel absolutely full of beans. So thank you for giving me that time off last week. So anyway, we're going to crack on with today's show. I'm very excited to discuss this topic with you. As I say, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about spiritual development. So first of all, let's address the elephant in the room, so to speak. Now, a lot of people ask me this question, with being myself a medium, and people are very intrigued by the ability to connect in with energy and understand energy, and also connect with spirit as well and have that deep dive conversation with them. And so a lot of people ask me this question, and the question is, can anybody have spiritual gifts and abilities? And the answer to that is yes, of course. Everybody comes here, is born into this reality, into this dimension, with those said spiritual gifts and abilities. What happens is that we're molded into society via either our parents, our teachers, our friends, our relatives, and social etiquette and governments and all of that. I could go on with a list, but basically we're molded to forget about all of our natural senses and our natural spiritual gifts and abilities. And instead, we're encouraged to focus on other aspects of our life and other skill sets that are deemed useful. And in many respects, they are. Obviously, as we live on this earth plane, we need to generate an income to actually live and exist on this planet, which still baffles me, even to this day. Every other animal and every other species doesn't do that, but we're the only one that happens to have to do that. And again, it's a head scratcher for me, and I'm sure it is for a lot of you that are listening as well. But going back to my point, yes, we're all born with spiritual gifts and abilities. And in my experience and observations, we all have the opportunity, if we choose to, we can use them, we can develop them and take them to the next level and remember who we are and actually use them in our everyday lives, should we choose to do so. As I say, it is a choice. And for me personally, what I've observed is it is when you put your continued effort, your focus and attention on understanding who you are and the sensitivities of life, this is how you can unpick and relearn your natural senses and your spiritual gifts and abilities. And we can take them further from that point onwards if you choose to walk that pathway on your spiritual journey. Then it is possible for anybody that is listening. And a lot of people always say, well, I can't see that working for me. I'm about as sensitive as a brick. And I would say, well, actually, no, I would disagree with you on that one. And in this episode, I'm going to hopefully convince you otherwise with the information that we're about to talk about. So let's also explore, what are spiritual gifts? Well, the term spiritual gifts, because I would say people know what you're talking about when they say spiritual gifts. They're abilities that the everyday person isn't aware of. And I use that term, everyday person isn't aware of, because they're choosing not to put their focus and their attention on these gifts. But everybody has the ability, as I say, to do this. So spiritual gifts, what are they? So basically it's you observing things. So you're going to be more observant of your emotions. That's a popular one. And empathy, empathic, that is the term, where you pick up on other people's feelings and, you sympathize and literally empathize with them because you're feeling it also with them in that moment. That is a spiritual gift. Also, clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is clear seeing in the mind, seeing visions, having experiences in the mind, and receiving information that is either connected to different individuals or remote viewing. There's lots of ways you can use clairvoyance, but it means clear seeing. Now, a lot of people do this without realizing clear seeing. We've all been encouraged not to daydream. And when we're daydreaming, in actual fact, we're using clairvoyance. We're connecting in with that part of the brain that is allowing us to tap into that imagination and also to send and receive information, visually speaking, using clairvoyance. So that is one of them. Another one is clairaudience. That means clear hearing. Now, this means two things. What I mean by this is that clear hearing is on about hearing the information that is entering your mind. So hearing a voice in response to your request, your thoughts that you're putting out there, and you get a response in a different tone, in a different voice sound as well. That comes in. That's you hearing spirit, hearing guidance, hearing different beings, different spirit in and around you. So that clear audience. Also, clear audience is referring to hearing with your physical ears, where you can hear sounds, frequency, communication that maybe other people aren't aware of at that moment in time. A classic example to this would be waking up in the morning and hearing your name being called, yet there's only you in the house there, nobody else is there with you, and you can hear it as clear as day with your physical ears. That's clairaudience. Another ability, which is also connected with empathy and being empathic, is clairsentience, means clear sensing. Now, clear sensing, again, to me, has various avenues to pursue. One is the emotions, so feeling the emotions, and this is sometimes spirit use your emotions to communicate information to you. So you'll be aware of also other people's emotions and pick up on those, and energy within a location and sensations within a location there. Also with clairsentience, you've got the observation of your own physical body, any aches and pains or ailments that weren't there a minute ago before you observed yourself. And this is another way that spirit or, your higher self or energy can communicate with you by dropping a message into your physicality and you observing that. Another spiritual gift, we're talking about, clairgustinance. So clairgustinance is tasting. And we've all had this experience where we're not literally eating anything, yet all of a sudden we get a taste for something in our palate, in our mouth. Maybe it's something that you can't buy off the shelves anymore. Maybe it's something from your childhood that you remember and you can taste it clear as day, really, really as if you just ate it. That is another way that spirit or energy can communicate to you. So an example how this would work is if you're, like I say, tasting, say, something from your childhood that you can't buy anymore, you haven't had since you were younger. Potentially that could be a person or person connected with your family in that moment when you ate that food that's letting you be aware of their presence. And they're doing that through putting these tastes into your palate. So that is clairgustance. Clairalience, however, is about clear smelling. So the smelling. And so how many times have we all experienced this? I get it a lot, obviously, with being a medium, but you walk into a room and then all of a sudden you get this whiff, this pong, this smell. A common one for me is smelling smoke, cigarette smoke or pipe tobacco smoke, which is very interesting because I don't smoke. Nobody in my household smokes. Nobody is allowed to come and smoke in my household, any visitors or anything like that. So I can completely rule that out. So when I smell smoke, it is a visitation from somebody in the world of spirit. And this can happen to you as well. If you're smelling smoke, it may be a grandfather or a fatherly figure that smoked, and they're just letting you be aware of their presence, and this is the way that they're presenting themselves to you. So clear smelling is very important. That's a very easy one for spirit to use, just to let you be aware of their presence. But obviously you got to fill in the dots. You got to work it out who it is by asking questions and observing your physicality and your gifts there to get a clear connection with them. Another one is clear cognizance. And I like to call this the governor, the boss of all the clears. And when you know, you don't know how you know, but you just know. It's that, basically. When you're unshakable, it's unmistakable, you're not going to change, you're very stubborn, and you just know that you know, and you trust in all of your abilities. And I would say it's the governor of all of your senses, because all of those facets, elements of all the senses that we've just described will be coming together. And with that information, the claircognizance kicks in, and you'll just know, and you will not shift. You will know that that is the right information. I trust it. I know it. I feel it. I sense it. I smell it. I taste it. It's all there. Claircognizance. So there's, I would say, the basis of your spiritual gifts and abilities. And a lot of us use these without even realizing on a day-to-day basis. So let's give you some examples of this. So how many of you have been sat there at home just resting or chilling out, and in the next minute, somebody pops into your mind? Maybe it's a friend or a relative that you haven't spoken to for quite some time, and randomly you just see their face in your mind's eye, and you'll be like, I wonder how they're getting on. Haven't heard from them in quite some time. And a few moments later, on that same evening, you hear your phone ping and you get a text message from that exact same individual, or maybe a phone call from them, or a message. Let's face it, there's lots of ways people can communicate nowadays with the advancement of technology. So it could be any of those things. And all of a sudden you receive contact from them, and you've literally just been thinking about them. Well, that is you connecting into energy, into thought forms, into energy forms there, and you're connecting into their vibration because they've been thinking of you, a form of telepathy, if you will, and then their face has appeared and their presence has appeared in your consciousness, and that's you picking up on their vibration and their intentions and thoughts. So that's one of the ways that you can use your spiritual gifts. on a daily basis. And it generally happens when you least expect it, doesn't it? But, it pays to pay attention, I always say. Another way is how to use your gifts and abilities on a daily basis. You can use it to make very important decisions in your life. Shall I walk down that road? Shall I catch the bus? Do I go into work today? All of these important life-changing decisions, we can trust our gut instinct, and that is in the solar plexus, in the stomach area. We've all experienced this. Again, going back to clear cognizance, we don't know how we know, but we get a feeling, we get a vibe. There's something either not quite right. I don't feel like I need to catch that bus today. I'll make my own way there using other means of transport. I'm just giving you examples now. But we get a feeling. We get that feeling and we can't seem to shake it off. No matter how many times we try to ignore it, it's just there. It won't move. It won't budge. Well, we can use that intuition, again, to make important life-changing decisions on our day-to-day usage. Also, I mentioned earlier about clairvoyance and daydreaming. And a lot of us have been encouraged since being at school not to do it and to pay attention. Well, I would say yes, there's some truth to that. Obviously, we've got to learn, we've got to grow, but also giving yourself time to actually do a little bit of daydreaming is very important, I find, because this is where you'll get some inspiration, some guidance, some ideas there, also some clarity about you on your pathway in your life moving forward. And maybe the information, the visual information or the video that's playing in your third eye there is some guidance that's going to help you to make an important decision. Like we've said on these shows many times before, Spirit will never make those decisions for you. They'll show you the options. They'll give you guidance, but it's down to you to choose, and only you can do that. So this is a way that you can use that in your day-to-day living. Also, hearing as well, clairaudience. If you utilize this gift, again, you can hear direct communication, and you can question that communication in your thoughts there and get some guidance and help, again, to help you make a decision, make a choice, not to make that choice for you again, because Spirit or your higher self will never do that. You have to make that decision, and that's why you've come down here in the first place to do that. So yeah, you can use them in that way, in that respect. Feeling into life as well, feeling into a situation, as we've said, is very important, I find. Particularly when we're in this stage of living where everything is very mental orientated, everybody's up there in their mind and they're processing information that they're witnessing and that they're experiencing, and they're not truly trusting that beautiful gift of gut instinct. So we can use that. So how do we use spiritual gifts respectfully? Okay, so I'm talking now to particularly people that are sensitive and are aware of their spiritual gifts, that connect with Spirit on a day-to-day basis. And let's face it, when we're all out and about, us sensitives, mediums, whatever you want to label us as, we pick up on other people's vibration, their energy, and sometimes we just blurt information out to other people. And we blurt it out, and we can get that blank stare as we say it, and people look at us like we're absolutely bonkers, saying all this information to us, like we're crazy. And, that is understandable, because we haven't explained ourselves. So my point being with this is how to use your gifts respectfully. I would say, I wouldn't advise people to blurt information out. You need to, again, respect people's boundaries, their vibrations, their energy, their choices in life. And you approach them if you have got information, because I always say when you have got information from the world of spirits on the tip of your tongue and you can't shake it off, it will not leave you until you've given that information. Well, at that point, then I would suggest that you go over to these individuals or reach out to them and say who you are, what you do, and that you've got some information for them. Would they be happy to hear that information? And let it be their choice. If they're happy to hear that information, then okay. Then that's when you can proceed and share the information that you're picking up for them in the form of a message to give them. And I would advise that in all situations. Don't just blurt it out there. Always ask for permission before you exchange information. I know it can be frustrating when that information is on the tip of your tongue and you just want to blurt it out, get it out of your vibration because it's not yours to hold on to. But you must ask for that permission because that person may not want to know that information. They may not understand the information that you're about to share with them. And they may just want to figure out their own life at their own pace, at their own time. So give them that choice. Don't just drop the information on them and then leave it with them and then clear off. And, because that could unravel all untold escapades for them. I don't know if that's the right term, probably not. But what I'm talking about, that person can go away, overthink about the information that you've given them. They can start worrying. That worry can then make them choose different thought patterns that are out of alignment with their life path. So you've got to give people that choice. Don't blurt the information at them. And it's very important that you're there for them afterwards, after you've given that information, for maybe questions that they want to pose to you about the information that you've exchanged. Again, just to put them in that peaceful state and make them understand why they've chosen to hear that information at that moment in time, rather than just dropping it on them and then walking off, because, as we say, it can unravel all manner of issues there for them. So it's very important that you should use your spiritual gifts very respectfully. So let's dive in a little bit deeper with spiritual development. And the first thing I always advise people is, before you do any sort of spiritual work or use your spiritual gifts, you've got to be comfortable with who you are. And you've got to learn to love, appreciate and know yourself. Now, most of us think we know ourselves, but do we really? So I'm talking about the obvious ones, or the things that you like, food that you enjoy, drink that you enjoy, people that you like to associate with, TV shows, music, football or sport or things like that. We all get to know ourselves, the things that make us feel good about ourselves, that we enjoy. Maybe it's dancing, performing, could be anything. Well, it's taking that a little bit further by observing your ways, your characteristics. For me, myself, I'm a little bit set in my ways. I'm stubborn. I like routine. And also I'm very patient as well, very loving, very caring, and very appreciative of things, situations, opportunities, and people in my life. So it's looking at other facets of your personality and getting to know yourself and appreciate yourself for who you are. Once you've arrived at this destination, I feel it's a very important piece of information to get to know and understand. And I often call this a baseline check in many respects. Before we do any spiritual work or use the spiritual gifts, I encourage my students to observe how they're feeling emotionally, what they're feeling in their physical body, and also what their dominant thoughts are. And the reason for doing this, well, there's two reasons. One is, again, to know thyself. The next thing is you will then be able to understand that any changes in your vibration from that point onwards will be information that's wanting to be exchanged and communicated to you. So you will recognize this very quickly, having done the baseline check. And also, it gives you that confidence in using your natural spiritual gifts and abilities, because you will know, well, that's not me. That's not something I like, something I would feel or think about at all. So you know 100% that this is information that you need to exchange and express through your spiritual gifts and abilities. So yes, knowing yourself is very, very important indeed before you begin to unfold on a spiritual level. The next thing I would always recommend to my students is meditation. Now, a lot of people, they don't like to hear that because they're having to slow life down, having to sit, and they're just having to be here now in that moment, in that silence. In some cases, in the beginning, I'd often recommend that you have a guided, voice-led meditation to gentle music in the background, where you can get used to the practice of just being here now, connecting with the breath work, slowing the breath work down, which will in turn slow the thoughts down in your mind. And in the beginning, it's a process of switching off those rogue thoughts that are in your mind, that are ricocheting around there. And when you become the third party, in other words, you observe the thoughts rather than giving them your time and attention, then this is where meditation becomes a lot more easier for you. And you relax into it, not only with your breath, with your thinking, but your physicality, your muscles begin to relax, your jaw begins to drop, your head may drop to one side, and your shoulders will drop. You'll sink into your seated position, and you will forget about everything. And your main focus is on either the guidance that is being gifted to you in that meditation, if it's a guided meditation, or you'll focus in on the tones in the music, and you'll observe your breathing, and you'll forget about everything else. It is a discipline after all, and it does get easier the more that you get into this process of meditation. Some people also do an offshoot of that, a ritual, if you like, where you're, again, tuning into vibration, your higher self, your natural spiritual gifts and abilities, and giving and receiving information in this process. It's called sitting in the power. And this is where you sit in silence, where you're not going to be disturbed by any external sources. And all you're doing is you're focusing in on your breath work, keeping it low and slow. And you're observing the thoughts that's happening in your mind with non-attachment to any of that drama that's happening there. And you're just relaxing your physical body. And with doing that, sitting in the silence, that silence starts to become such a beautiful place to be, because within that silence, there's an abundance of information that you've never realized or given your time and attention to previously. And so when you sit in that silence, and again, it is a practice, you do grow and you get used to the practice, you'll begin to receive information and pick up on ideas, thoughts. You'll be able to project your vibration out into the ether, do some astral traveling, go on some adventures. You can use this time sitting in the power also to give and receive healing. You can use it to enhance your natural spiritual gifts and abilities, because you're getting in tune vibrationally with your true self, your higher self, the universe, and it will just happen behind the scenes with no effort from yourself other than just focusing in on that breath work and observing the thoughts and not being attached to the thoughts. It's an amazing experience once you get into it. I also recommend nature being an amazing tonic, an amazing catalyst, shall we say, for your natural spiritual gifts and abilities, your natural senses to come into alignment. And because even now I find nature a beautiful tonic simply because when I go out in nature, I find that my natural sensitivity increases. I start to hear inspiration. I start to feel that healing. I start to feel the beautiful energy exchange between nature and myself. And it's an amazing sensation. It's almost like a clean slate. I feel recharged, ready to work and embrace new energies once I've been out in nature. And you'll find once you have done that you'll feel refreshed, rejuvenated, and you'll be more full of life. So nature is a great tonic, and you don't have to necessarily sit and meditate in nature. You can if you want to amplify the experience, or it is entirely up to you. But even just strolling, having a walk in nature, that can have a massive impact on your sensitivity and your spiritual development. So if you can, make sure that you're creating some sacred space for you and nature, because it will benefit you in the long run. Okay, so we've also touched upon observing your senses earlier, haven't we? About what you're smelling, tasting, touching, seeing, hearing, knowing. And so just put your focus inwardly on all of these elements. And this is also how you'll begin to expand and amplify your natural spiritual gifts and abilities, giving yourself a pocket of time each and every day. Maybe start off with 5 minutes, just observing how you're feeling. And it will, I would say, ricochet in a positive manner from there on in. Now, spirit guides are very important with this process, with your spiritual gifts and abilities. And I would say they will come into your life when they're ready. They will make that introduction to you when you're ready as well. So having done the things that I've described to you, such as meditation, sitting in the power, nature, observing yourself, at that point, this is where your spirit guides, you'll be more aware of their presence and their gentle influence in your life. And at this stage, I would certainly encourage you to either seek some help and advice from a spiritual professional, where they can take you on a journey to meet directly your spirit guide, and you can start and build that relationship up with your guide. And this is where your natural gifts and abilities will kick in stronger, and you'll be able to connect and communicate with the world of spirit. But it does take time. So don't think that just because you've been introduced to them, right, I can do it now, straight away, that's it, I'm good to go. No, as with all relationships, you have to build that level of trust, that bond, and you have to get to know one another and appreciate one another and respect one another. It's very important. It took me a long time to develop that, shall we call it a working relationship with my spirit guide, my main spirit guide. And then you're introduced, once you've done that and you get used to the process, you're introduced to other guides that are working alongside you. And it's an amazing experience when you get to experience this. It's such a beautiful thing. But with this being said, it's very important, I feel, to set boundaries when you're open for business, when you're closed for business. And what I mean by that is working with spirit, working with energy, because we are all open 24 hours a day. We all have this natural connection to nature, energy, and our surroundings. And with that being said, when your senses are amplified, it can be overwhelming to the point where you don't get any sleep. You're picking up on other people's thoughts, their emotions, their feelings, and you're not in a position to live the best version of yourself in your life, experience your own life, simply because you're bombarded with all of this information all at the same time. So setting in boundaries are very important. And I refer to using the opening up of the chakra system and the expansion of the auric field. and setting intentions in which you would like to work with. So in the beginning, I would certainly recommend that you dedicate maybe one evening once a week where you hold space with your guides, with spirit, in spiritual development. Maybe it's for a couple of hours there. And so you set intentions with an intentional prayer with your team that you're going to work with them on this particular time, on this particular day. And all of your chakras, you're going to go through that procedure of opening them up and expanding your aura. And what that will do, it's almost like I say, opening a shop. It's respectfully saying to spirit, here I am. I'm available to work and experience our connection together in this time slot that we have designated. Now, if you're a working medium like yourself, like myself, should I say, then obviously you will be doing that on a daily basis or whenever you choose to work with spirit. But also, equally, it is important at the end of that session that you close your chakras down. Again, closing shop, bringing your auric field in there, bringing your sensitivity in a little bit more. Again, this is done so that you can function in your day-to-day living, so you're not bombarded by energies, by thoughts, by other people's emotions, so that you can get on with your life. You will still be able to pick up on spiritual information and your senses and your spiritual gifts and abilities. However, they will be slightly more dialed down than when you fully open up, if that makes sense. So you are, in many respects, in control of how much you let in and how much you let out, so to speak, with your spiritual sensitivity. So it's important you do that. Otherwise, it can lead to being drained to the point where you get no sleep, where you're continually contacted from the world of spirit. And obviously, being human, we all need our rest and recuperation. So it's important that you do that. Also, some little bits of guidance that you could use, if you're wanting to expand using your spiritual gifts on a day-to-day basis. One of those things, as we've mentioned earlier, is the gut instinct. Trust your gut instinct. And this is very, very useful if you're having conversations with friends, family, or just people that you've never met before, and they're saying all the right words, they're doing all the right things. It just sounds and looks amazing what they're suggesting to you. However, your gut instinct is telling a different story. It's picking up on their truth vibrations, their energy, their intentions, and it's not matching or lining up with the words that they're speaking or what they're showing you. So this is a very useful tool to spot somebody that likes to bend the truth and manipulate the truth and uses lies to get one up on other people. You can see through it. You can sense and see through that situation, and then it's your call there to make a decision whether you go ahead with what they're talking about or you retract your energy and find your own way there. So it's a great tool to use in your day-to-day living. Another one is remote viewing. Now, remote viewing is where you relax, take yourself into a meditation state, and you allow your essence, almost like in a daydream state. You have to set the intention of the location you'd like to visit, and your essence, your soul, will go and visit that location, and you can come back with information again into your natural, using your spiritual gifts and abilities. That information will be given back to you, and this is particularly interesting and useful. For me, I use it if I go to a paranormal event or a location that I've never been before, and I may want to set aside some time to do some remote viewing and observe that location, see what's there, come back, take some notes, write them down, and then turn up at that event, take the notes that I've taken, and then share that information with other colleagues there. And it's interesting how some of the things that you've seen in that remote viewing session shows up in that location, whether it's symbolism, whether it's textures, people there. It can be anything that you've experienced in that remote viewing session. So that is very, very interesting. As well, if you're going for a job interview, you can see into that situation ahead of it, meeting somebody, maybe it's a date or something like that. You can see ahead of time, and it can give you a little bit of a heads up, but you've got to build that trust bond up with your spiritual gifts and abilities, obviously, before you do that. Another one is psychometry, and this is where you literally hands-on to either an object, a room, a location, even a person with their permission, and you feel into the energy and you let that story of that energy play out, and you'll feel the emotions, you'll get the gut instincts. If you're lucky enough, you'll get visual images being projected into your third eye where you can see where that object has been, what it's experienced, what it's been through. That can be very useful in your day-to-day living, definitely. And as we said, we mentioned about reading people's energy. So this is how you spot somebody who's not being sincere with the information that they're sharing with you. A great example of this is when you're watching the news or a news bulletin or hearing it on the radio, and they're saying it all very serious, all this information, the facts sound very, oh dear. Feel into it. Feel into the energy of that. Is it true? You'll pick up on the truth vibrations, and you'll get to know that information is incorrect. And another thing I'd like you to be aware of is getting rest. It is very exciting in the beginning when you're aware of your natural senses and your gifts and abilities. It's a beautiful experience, but you must set aside some time for rest, because you can be wiped out mentally, emotionally, physically, very easy if you're not taking that time out to recalibrate and recharge. I said earlier about if you don't set boundaries, you may be bombarded by spirit the early hours of the morning whilst you're in bed trying to sleep, and this can keep you awake, so that's going to interfere with your rest. So very important that you get your rest. Also, your curiosity will get the better of you, and you'll start to do a little bit more research in connection with spiritual gifts and abilities and how to use them. Go and do that, and then you'll want to develop them a little bit further and experience some of these things that I've been speaking about today in today's episode. And so go and seek a professional, whether this is a spiritual tutor, a guide, a medium, or most of us offer some guidance and help to help you on your journey there. And in fact, a shameful plug here from myself, but I actually run spiritual development classes where I tutor you how to nurture your natural spiritual gifts and abilities. And I take you to the stage where you can connect with your spirit guides. You can do readings for other people. You can read energy, psychometry. I teach using spiritual tools such as oracle, tarot cards, angel cards, scrying crystal balls, pendulums, dowsing rods. And so I teach all facets and aspects of spiritual development. If that does interest you, also if you're very sensitive with your spiritual gifts and abilities and you're wanting to take it to the next level, I do teach trance mediumship as well. And this is the process where you create that space for a spirit communicator to step into your energy field and directly communicate through you as a vessel. So I teach that as well. So if you are interested in any of those things and taking your sensitivity to the next level, then you can do so by simply getting in touch with me. You can find me on all the social media platforms, drop me a message, or head over to my website, which is www.glennboddicespiritualmedium.com, and you can message me directly or join in with the classes. The information is there for you if you choose to do so. But I hope you found this conversation very useful as your natural sensitivity is going to come in very handy, particularly this year of 2026, as most of you are currently experiencing. There's a lot of change happening this year. So tuning in and feeling into situations are going to help you stay headstrong, stay true to your path during the course of this year. How is everybody doing? I hope you're all well rested and you had a wonderful Easter. I thought I'd take this opportunity to check in with you all. Do you feel different? Have you noticed that this year is speeding up? I mean, to me, I cannot believe it. We're now into the throes of April, aren't we? And it's like, what? Where's this year going? But as I said at the beginning of this episode, thank you so much for giving me that opportunity to have a well-deserved rest, as over the Easter weekend, that's generally what I did. I took some time away. Basically, time away for me can be literally clearing space in my mind, because normally I'm thinking about, I've got this to do on this time, and my mind is constantly busy. So to be able to put that part of my life on pause and just be here now, being present and enjoying what is happening with the family, my friends as well, was amazing. Also to just basically down tools and watch some cool TV shows that I love. As you know, I'm a big fan of old school comedy going back to the 70s. So I was doing a lot of that. Also, I enjoy performing on my drums and singing as well. So I was doing some of that and just loving life and giving a little bit back to myself. So thank you for that opportunity and allowing me to do that. And I did spend some time in nature also, which in turn refreshed my vibration. And I come back a lot more vibrant as a result of doing that. So I hope you had a wonderful weekend break, shall we say. It's a long weekend here in the UK over Easter, and that you too also feel refreshed and rejuvenated, because it's very important, isn't it? So now we're going to move on to the next segment of this episode, which is the channeling, which sees me becoming a vessel for spirit to work their wisdom through. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. We are here, in fact, to share some wise information with you. This information is coming from far and wide to inform you about all of your choices and the way in which you wish to focus your attention on things. Well, first of all, we're going to talk to you about where your influences are coming from. Are they coming from your higher self, or are you being influenced by, shall we say, the external things around you? Most of you will find that you'll make unconscious choices based around your environments and what is expected of you in this fashion. There's a lot of peer pressure in your social circles, and in fact, part of the subconscious mind caves in and it embraces these ideals, these belief systems, in order for you to make choices that you, your higher self, wouldn't necessarily make. So, we're aware that you're all doing this on some way, shape, or form, no matter how big or small. It is prevalent in your society. There is a notion that one does not want to appear abnormal or indifferent in any way for fear of judgment or ridicule. In fact, it is a blessing to be connected to your true self and to honor that light that vibrates and shines through you. It is an honor to be part of the great service. And so, we bring this to your attention just to snap you out of that, shall we say, daze of confusion. We've been following blindly for quite some time now. We're not just talking about in your lifetime. We're going through the generation after generation, and so on and so forth. This notion that one should follow certain procedures or rules is one of, shall we say, untruth. It's going against your soul and your purpose and who you're here to do. There's many of you in your earthbound incarnation that have been feeling down and depressed and uncomfortable in their own physical body. And this very reason is because they're going against the grain. They're flowing against the water, the tide of their soul, their essence. And this is causing them great upset and discomfort in their waking moments within their lives on your planet. There will be those of you that will find it increasingly difficult to move out of this cycle. We want to use the word abuse because in many ways it is a form of abuse. You're abusing, or you're being led to abuse the essence of who you are, your soul, and what you came here to do. You will have achieved many things on your life purpose. However, most of you will be aware that there's always been a sense of resistance to change and a sense of unfamiliarity about who you are. And that courage and bravery in which it takes for you to embrace that side of you, the side of you that society is not willing to witness or share with you. So in many respects it becomes a solo journey. And once you go upon this journey of self-discovery, finding and connecting to the frequency of who you are, then everything will flow better in alignment. And you'll start attracting things that match your true essence of who you are, and not that expectation of society's wants, needs, pleasures, or desires. You'll in fact feel a lot more calmer within yourself, and you'll notice that your life will start to change dramatically. You'll feel, like we say, at peace and at calm with your vibration. And there'll be those, shall we say, influences around you that will find it increasingly difficult to stay around your vibrational flow. It will be uncomfortable to them. So in many respects, the energy will do the work for you. Your work is just to focus and just allow the essence of who you are to come forward and reign the beauty of what it is. So we hope this bit of information is helping you to maybe consider a new life path, and maybe consider that of following the frequency of who you are. There's no easy or right or wrong ways about doing this. The only thing we would offer in order for you to get on this path of enlightenment is to feel in your emotions in your heart. Most of you will feel the frequencies around you in your environment, and you will feel that discord, but you will do it anyway, because that is what is expected of you in your collective communities. However, in order to get on to this truth of who you are, you have to feel beyond that, and you have to move into that state of flow, that state of ease and grace. And when that is achieved, then this is when you will change your pathway, and your new adventures will begin. We thank you for listening to our ramblings, and hope it is helping you to avoid future confusions that will occur. But for now, we wish you luck on your journey ahead, and send you love, courage, bravery, and blessings to you and all of your families. We thank you for listening, And we have another communicator coming through for your listening. Very interesting transmission there from the world of spirit. Hopefully you can relate and take that information and filter it through into your own lives there. Also, just to remind you, as I said earlier, I do actually teach transmediumship. This is where you take your mediumship to the next level, where you allow a spirit being to blend with your energy and communicate through you. So again, if you're interested in that, please do get in touch with me. Anyway, we're going to move into the next segment of this week's episode, and this is where we have a sneaky peek into this week's forecast reading. So sit back, relax, take some notes if you wish, and enjoy this week's forecast reading. Hello, my name is Glenn Boddice and I'm a spiritual medium, and welcome to this week's energy forecast reading for the week commencing Monday, the 13th of April 2026. Now, those of you that have watched me work before will know that I connect with my spirit guides and helpers and consult the wisdom of the angel tarot cards. So what I'm about to do is just shuffle the cards and allow a card to come out for this week's energy forecast reading. And here is your card. It dropped on the floor. So this is your card for this week. I'm now going to link into the vibration of it. First of all, I'm being told, watch out for this week, as it is going to be a game changer. I feel as though you're going to be making very important decisions regarding your life. It's almost as if you've had enough of the same old status quo. In other words, the same old situation, and you're wanting to change things up. And I feel as though this has happened for very good reason, and the timing is right. I feel as though you're going to make very important decisions regarding your financial situation. And with you making that positive step forward, I do feel as though there's going to be an increase in finances and support for you there as well. In terms of your health, I do feel, though, that this week there's going to be more vitality, more energy, whether that's to do with the weather and the changing of the weather and the seasons. But I do feel that you'll have a lot more energy, more get up and go. And you'll be noticing that you'll be... This is the end of the free version of the weekly forecast reading. If you would like to see the entirety of this week's forecast reading, then you can do that by subscribing. And as a subscriber, what you will receive is the full version of the weekly forecast reading. You will also receive the audio for the weekly radio show, and also you'll receive 10% off all of my spiritual services there. So this includes all of the readings there for you to benefit from. And also you will receive new updates and information and news of what's happening with myself and the services that I provide, and also the events that I take part in. You'll hear all about that ahead of everybody else. And this is because you're a subscriber to Glenn Boddice Spiritual Medium. So you can find a link either above or below this video, where by clicking on the link, you can then become a subscriber to reap all of the benefits that I've described to you. So I look forward to having you on this journey with me as a Glenn Boddice Spiritual Medium subscriber. Thank you for taking time to watch this video and supporting the work that Spirit and myself work together in doing so. Wow, it sounds like we're in for an interesting week this week, doesn't it? Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to this episode. I hope you found it particularly useful and inspirational. That is always the intention. If you would like to get in touch with me, you can do that by heading over to my website, www.glennboddice.spiritualmedium.com, or you can email me at glennboddice@live.co.uk. I look forward to your company, same place, same time, next Monday, 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Have a blessed week, everybody. Take care and bye for now. Thank you for listening to From Beyond. For more information about what products and services Glenn provides, go to Glenn Boddice Spiritual Medium